everybody, I'm Garry Adelman.
And I'm Kris White.
And we are here with GoPro cameras doing something we haven't quite done before. We're going to walk around a battlefield with less talking than usual. That's right. You could take that to the bank. And our goal here, standing at Devil's Den at Gettysburg, is to give you a view of this place when either you're too far away to come, or they might be conducting rehabilitation here and it might be blocked off, or just to start a new series, perhaps, just walking around battlefields. We'd be curious to know how you like this approach and whether we should shoot more of them. So just looking around, we're at Devil's Den. These rocks are more than 200 million years old, and that's Little Round Top off in the distance. We're not going to get into great fighting detail over here, but you see Little Round Top there, you see the slaughter pen over here, and you can see sort of the scene of the Confederate attack starting to lay out behind me here. You could see a knoll called Benning's Knoll that we'll visit. These rocks have been visited by people since before the Battle of Gettysburg. We know people were coming here in the 1830s and 40s and 50s. And here we are walking across those same rocks. This is sometimes called the open cavern at Devil's Den.
The noise you hear in the background, pounding, that's actually them getting ready, doing site prep to help do some of the work that's going to go on out here. What you're seeing in front of us now is actually a lot of the erosion. You can see underneath this pathway that's supposed to get you around Devil's Den, it's actually all kind of landsliding on us. So one day this is going to give out. So that's the reason why they'll close this down for about 6 months and give the workers an opportunity to stabilize this area. Remember, this has been visited since July 5th or 6th when Alexander Gardner came down here originally with his crew and took photographs. Then you'll have Matthew Brady go up on a Little Round Top, do the same thing. Then we'll have pictures of soldiers down here in November of 1863, just days before the Gettysburg Address, down here posing for pictures, some of them playing dead, some of them standing up there puffing out their chests. So this becomes a very popular tourist spot. There's a trolley line down through here. There's all kinds of different things. A place called Tipton's Park. And then, of course, we have Gettysburg National Military Park, who comes in here and opens it up for a lot of visitor access.
Now, we are now kind of coming to even higher above Devil's Den, or the terminus of Houck's Ridge. You can see Rose Woods behind me over there. You can see that the wheat field would be about 400 yards behind me over there. So Devil's Den and the wheat field are not that far apart. And as we look over here, you're looking at Seminary Ridge. And this sign does a great job. When you come here, check this sign out and see the predicament of the Union Army here at Devil's Den. No matter where they were, it seems like the Confederates were going to get around or outflank them. As we go off in this direction, you're seeing something that was in the Gettysburg movie. They actually filmed some of the movie over here. Here you're looking at James Smith's 4th New York Independent Battery Monument there, and that has been unfortunately toppled a couple of times in the 90s, but it's been fixed and it looks great up here. His guns were not here, but rather at our next stop up there. And another view here of Little Round Top from Devil's Den. All the Confederates who were faced with attacking Little Round Top after capturing Devil's Den, which they did on the afternoon of July 2nd, 1863, used the same word to describe Little Round Top at that point: impregnable.
One thing that you might notice if you've been here to Devil's Den, you might see this caution tape over here on the ground, and you're lacking 4 of the 6 guns of James Smith's 4th Battery of New York Light Artillery up here. So they're doing a lot of the site prep. As you can see here, here's more of the erosion coming down from the 99th Pennsylvania Monument, a very modern looking monument, but not as modern as you would think.
In fact, that monument was put up here in, I believe, 1889, so it's not new at all. It's only new compared to the even older one that used to occupy that site that was taken down when the Regimental Association got some more money.
Yeah, and that monument, that first monument to the 99th PA, placed in 1886, is actually along Hancock Avenue. So still on the battlefield, they just want to put something a little bit more impressive up here.
Yes. So here we are on the highest natural spot of Devil's Den. Specifically, this rock right here is the highest natural spot on which you could stand at Devil's Den. Let's not go up there with our GoPros now, but if you did, you could see a lot. The 99th Pennsylvania was rushed to this location and actually faced in that direction to counter the Confederate threat coming through the Valley of Death off in that direction. What a great view you have from here. So you can see the slaughter pen in the distance over there, looking maybe into the sun, and I apologize for that. You can see Little Round Top off behind the monument over here. And going off further, you can see more of Houck's Ridge, where more Confederates, after fighting in the wheat field, are going to crash into the valley beyond, called the Valley of Death. Now, as we look over in this direction, this is really where the fight for Devil's Den sort of opened. This is where Texas and New York soldiers and then Georgians are going to clash out in a field they're called the Triangle Field. It was terrible, bloody fighting. Confederates went through that field, captured the top, fell back again as the Union recaptured it, and then the Southerners captured it again here. One more thing. This is where James E. Smith's cannons were, and one of the reasons we know that is because after the Civil War, James Smith, with the overall commander of the Union artillery here at Gettysburg, Henry Hunt, went on top of this rock here, I believe at least, and said, "Captain, get a painter and mark on this rock that that your gun sat a few feet to the north of this and your right gun was right in this position here." And he pointed down to the current monument and said, "If you'd have placed it down where that monument is, I'd have arrested you for incompetence." Okay, this is the only spot where you can point to that as down, so I'm confident that all the accounts say that James Smith's guns were here. 3 of the 4 that were up here will be captured during the Battle of Gettysburg. 3 out of only 7 cannons the Confederates left with.
As we walk down here, we're kind of looking southwest, just to kind of orient you on the battlefield. South-southwest, looking directly ahead, you'd be looking at a lot of angry Texans and some Razorbacks coming up here on July 2nd, 1863. That's part of John Bell Hood's division. 33-year-old guy, West Point graduate of the class of 1853, has that hangdog look on his face, and he is wounded out in the distance about 400 yards into this attack. So John Bell Hood's day at Gettysburg ends very quickly, and coming across those fields of the Bushmen, the Slider Farm, coming across from Warfield Ridge.
What I would say, as we walk around here, you can start to get a glimpse of one of Gettysburg's most famous trees. It's what we call a witness tree, although some people like to argue that maybe it wasn't here at the time of the battle. Indeed, a tree can grow this large in less than 158 years, but I believe you can see this tree in the background of another photo as a very small tree during the battle. So I think this is a witness tree, and we call it that, of course, because it would have witnessed the Battle of Gettysburg. Imagine if you could see what it saw on July 2nd and 3rd, and then the terrible aftermath on July 4th and 5th, 1863. At least on this camera, we're getting another view across the den toward the impregnable Little Round Top, and you can see these igneous boulders. Most of the Gettysburg battlefield is not covered with boulders, but this area is. Why? Because there is a sill, the Gettysburg sill, that runs diagonally through this part of Pennsylvania, and that is why you have boulders on Culp's Hill and Little Round Top and not on, say, Cemetery Ridge in the first day's field. By the way, we will be making our way down to below the rocks as well. We'll make you wait for that. But first, Kris is pointing the camera out toward Seminary Ridge. This is where Hood's division attacked across, specifically Robertson's brigade, parts of Law's brigade, and then Benning's brigade is going to be within your field of vision here. As part of that fighting, one Confederate soldier was killed, or at least mortally wounded, so that he was photographed 4 times by Alexander Gardner behind a rock directly behind me. Four photos of his corpse. He was not bloated like the other soldiers. He looked like he could be someone you actually know. And then in a flash of creative excitement, the photographers came up here and dragged him up to this location, recording 2 more photographs. And you know this story here. It became one of the most famous photos of the Civil War. He is actually dead. We do not know his name or his identity, despite several people's attempts to do so. There's a good chance we will never know it, but we could narrow it down to a good 40 or 50 different people. Maybe that's the best we can do for him. But people have been visiting and helping to, usually not on purpose, tear down this sharpshooter's wall ever since the Battle of Gettysburg, and the Park Service dutifully restacks it when they can. We're sort of walking generally southwest. Watch your step here. I'll say that to me and the other cameraman, Kris. as we move toward the slaughter pen, and more specifically Benning's Knoll over here. Benning's Knoll, you know, is named, not as many people use that name as I'd like, because Tim Smith and I actually named it about 20-some years ago, 30 years ago, for Henry L. Benning, whose 1,300 Georgians came over and tipped the scales for the Confederates here at the Battle of Devil's Den. And from there, you can get a great view of the Confederate perspective in the battle, and that's what we'll do.
Yeah, we have a lot of Alabamians down here. We have Georgians. We also have the 3rd Arkansas, the only Arkansas regiment on the battlefield here at Gettysburg, also dubbed the 3rd Texas, according to the Texans who they fought with, of the famed Texas Brigade. The 1st, 4th, and 5th Texas who were out here. And then on top of the hill behind us, up on top of Houck's Ridge and near Devil's Den, you would have had Union soldiers. They would have been under John Henry Hobart Ward. And he has the largest brigade here at Gettysburg in terms of regiments and numbers, about 2,100 men up there from Pennsylvania. You'd have Indianans up there, Mainers, New Yorkers. So you have a mixture of Union troops up on top of that ridge, and they're moving around constantly. This isn't a battle that is static. A lot of people think when you look at a map, it's static, but actually the battle here at Devil's Den is the first action, major action on the 2nd day at Gettysburg. They actually make contact here before they get up on the top of Little Round Top, and this is where Ward's brigade starts facing off against Polly Robertson's Texans. One man said that Robertson was wounded in the battle. Another man said he never saw any action and is eventually going to be transferred out of the army. So, you know, you never know who always to believe. And then, of course, we'll have Evander Law's Alabamians fighting down right in front of us.
Standing here on July 2nd, 1863, you'd see Texans and Arkansans moving across the field here. You would see the 124th New York charge into those Texans and watch the Texans reel as some of the Georgians came up to save them. You'd see the Alabamians, the 44th Alabama, strike the flank of the 124th New York. You would see other Alabamians, part of the 44th and 48th, come through this area on the right. You'd see the 40th New York show up in the valley. You'd see Smith's cannons in the valley, belching artillery against some of the other Texans who were arriving to begin to attack Little Round Top. This is a stunning view, and one person who didn't enjoy it was somewhere down in this direction who was completely exhausted and couldn't go on anymore. He was a colonel, a guy named Perry of the 44th, and he said buried in the recesses of the rocks he could only hear, and he could not even describe the shrieks of the combatants, the screaming of the shells, and the boom of the cannon, and the noise when they hit the rocks was simply indescribable.
And for all of those American Battlefield Trust aficionados, here's some useless information for you. If you look up this hill, you look at that witness tree, this is actually near the site where we took the picture for our cover of our book, Fighting the Second Civil War. So if you're interested in about the history of the American Battlefield Trust and the preservation movement over the last 30+ years, you can check out our book, Fighting the Second Civil War, and that's what the cover looks like, a little bit prettier than what I'm showing you right now.
I'll also say, for those of you wanting more battle information, more information about the Den, we have at least 30 videos posted about Devil's Den on our Facebook and YouTube channels. If you want more on Little Round Top, there's probably 50 more videos on Little Round Top in that area. So you will not be short for that. We are trying to keep this video brief for the intention of documenting what Devil's Den looks like here in March of 2022 before the rehabilitation, as well as to provide sort of a way for you to see this place, you know, when you're unable to come or during the actual closure of this place. So here's the slaughter pen, some of it off to the right. Imagine trying to fight in lines of battle through these massive boulders. The answer is you can't. There is simply no way. So they said they had to pick from rock to rock. They had to fight in a way that they weren't used to fighting. And while you have good cover, the Confederates were charged with advancing in that direction. And you can see how difficult that is actually going to be. You can see the big wall of rocks here. These rocks would have tumbled on top of one another when the soil eroded about 201 million years ago. Let's see if we can mount this rock up here before it gets too difficult, or before the fencing that I see they're already putting out actually starts to get in our way. The reason we're hugging the rocks here is not only because it's super cool. I mean, imagine this. One Georgian talked about the line of vertical fire coming down in this direction here. But the reason I wanted to take you over here is to show you a feature right here called the original Devil's Den. Not Devil's Den proper that people used to describe that area over there, but this cave here. Not this cave, but rather specifically
Brody, are you there?
that cave right there that kids just love to crawl through. There's a lot of different ways in, and people like to go into the original Devil's Den. John Batchelder, the park's first historian, really said that that was the Devil's Den, not the big pile of rocks over here. So we hope you're enjoying this walk around. You're with the American Battlefield Trust. We're sort of documenting and bringing Devil's Den to you for anybody who isn't able to visit as often as they'd like, or during the 2022 closure. You can see what you call sometimes the open cavern right here. And I was just showing you the Devil's Bath. It fills with water every time it rains. You know, you go around the country, Devil's Lake, Devil's Slipper, Devil's Bath, Devil's Tower. They're all rocky areas. And one thing I do know is that this rock used to sit right there. And according to one account, it was knocked off by a bolt of lightning in the 1850s. Here's one of dozens of signs that were put up by the War Department in the 1890s and early 1900s. This one dates to, I believe, 1900 and denotes the general area of Devil's Den. One veteran used this sign and the road behind Kris there, right over there actually on my camera, to suggest where two of his comrades were killed, shot through the top of the head by the almost vertical fire coming down from the top of Devil's Den. Imagine if fate dealt you to fight in such a strange place. I've always thought that this could be a national park or a state park without even having a battle fought here. The soldiers were impressed with it at the time, but didn't have much time to think about that because they had deadly work ahead. You can see maybe some more of the erosion off in that direction there. We hope you're enjoying this little walk through Devil's Den. I know Kris and I are. It's a lovely day here today, unlike during 1863. Up there, we're gonna finish up right over here. Actually, we'll do a 360, but real quick, I'm showing you the Table Rock off in that direction, and I'm gonna walk around Kris's camera next.
And this is one of our new signs out here that the National Park Service is installing. They're updating their interpretive signs. These are interpretive panels. These are not monuments. These are meant to give you a better understanding of what is in this area, what happened here. So they're tilted on this little angle so that you'll look upwards and take in this site that is Devil's Den down here. Remember, this is a very popular tourist site just over to my right and where the cars are parked. You might remember an old a restroom that was placed here in 1935, but before that was Tipton Park. Boss Tipton looks to take advantage of the battlefield from time to time, and he is an entrepreneur and installs a park, helps to put a trolley through here, has a photographic studio down here, and is prolific in the early days of battlefield preservation, not always in the best of ways.
I think that's right. And I just want to pick up on one thing Kris said there, and that is that, you know, he said our new signs installed by the Park Service. These are ours. Now, the park is the steward of the Gettysburg National Military Park, and when they need to close something in order to rehabilitate it, to keep visitors safe, that is, of course, their charge. But this is your battlefield. Use it virtually. Come and learn from it, you know, when you are able. This, other battlefields, this is how we can help to understand our American history. So I know I'm probably preaching to the choir if you're already watching this video, let alone made it so far in here. So Kris already talked about Tipton Park and the slaughter pen behind you. This is the Table Rock here. If there's one boulder more associated with Devil's Den than any other, it is this one. This is where photographers set up their cameras, and in the 1890s, you went to the camera. You didn't bring the camera with you. So tens of thousands of photos were taken in front of those rocks, and local people carved their initials in those rocks and their names so that their name could appear in tens of thousands of photos, and it worked until 1895 or so, when the government chiseled all that graffiti out, thinking if they didn't do that, people would continue to do it. So it has worked. You see very few rock carvings around here now, beside which it's against the law. Looking up the Valley of Death, we're going to get our last view in this area. You can see the 4th Mains Monument over there. The sun is a little higher, so you might get a good view of Little Round Top off in that direction. Again, one more view of the slaughter pen over here. And we're going to conclude over here by showing you one of the many locations Alexander Gardner actually went to. He took time out of his shooting schedule or his shooting operations to document the dead all around here. There are 37 photos of human carnage here at Gettysburg, actually maybe as many as 41. We still argue about that a little bit. And there were more more here at Gettysburg than any other place, and all of those that we know of that were recorded at Devil's Den in the Slaughter Pen and at the Rose Farm. So he's got dead soldiers all around here, but he took some time out to record, presumably a friend of his named Alfred Wad. And Alfred Wad was sitting right here, kind of looking toward Little Round Top, but with his eyes looking up the valley over there, pretending to sketch something. If he was sketching, we don't still have that sketch, but it was right here. So this is one of those areas where you can come and connect with history. You can see Gardner's photos. Because there are boulders, you can engage with those photos and actually sit in the same spot, touch the rock that Alfred Wad touched, and maybe try to get a vision of what he saw as he sat here, having his photograph taken with dead soldiers all around here, with the stench just unbearable here. So we're gonna end on this particular note here. I wanna invite Kris to do any tie-ups here as we show you some last views of Devil's Den and the Slaughter Pen.
I think one thing to remember is there are kids all over the place down here. Do be careful on the rocks, but many of us grew up on these rocks. I did. I have a great home video of me filming and talking and a terrible tour for my parents and falling down on the rocks, so it's pretty funny to watch. But we do send kids down here, so if you ever have a chance, check out our field trip fund. We encourage you to come out to the battlefield when it's open. If you can't, we hope that these virtual walk-arounds will give you a better understanding of what the terrain looks like. And as Garry pointed out, you can head over to battlefields.org or over to our YouTube channel for the American Battlefield Trust and watch our dozens of videos that we have of Little Round Top and Devil's Den and learn about the importance. This is where it all started on July 2nd, 1863. This is where the Confederates made contact with the Federals, right down here in these rocks, and this is where one of the second day of one of the greatest battles in human history initiated down here in Devil's Den.
Thank you so much for all that, Kris. This is our inaugural attempt. We'd love to hear how you like this sort of an approach. Let us know on our social channels how you like it. People tend to not be shy about that. So thank you so much for watching this far into the video. Thanks to Kris. Thanks to the Park Service for all they're trying to do to steward this park. And thank you all for supporting battlefield preservation and education.